I ended my last lecture finishing this video here from Tim's, a very uh, disturbing video, no matter what your opinion is on the politics or idea of it. But um, I hope what you also focus on is the last part of his rap. He tried to make a statement about, by the way, you know that um, Noah's Ark was built in Iraq, the Garden of Eden isn't from Iraq, Abraham. Um, that is the belief that people from a biblical tradition would have, and he's kind of trying to remind those who believe in those stories as historic reality that the geographic location of where these characters and these stories come from are from this part of the world. And that's kind of the part I also wanted to draw into you is to like see, make that connection on that idea. I also wanted to clarify just a little bit. I talked about Chaldeans being a Roman Catholic. I think probably a more precise way to say it is that the Chaldean Catholics are in communion with Rome as with Roman Catholics. So you have the same thing in Lebanon. The Maronite Christians are in fact in communion with Rome, and that is for a more elaborate discussion of how Catholicism or Christianity works, which I'm not going to do right now. In any case, we are going to move on. So here, this is actually a German map. You can see how the spellings are in German, but I just kind of wanted you to get an overall look. Here we have the Tigris and Euphrates, Mesopotamia, not far off from ancient Persia, Iran, the land of Aryans. And we have over here the biblical lands, and Lebanon. This would be in this area of Syria, okay, Turkey, and here's modern Kuwait, although there wasn't a Kuwait like we have now back then. Anyway, so hopefully this map is a little helpful in kind of visualizing again the context of these places. All right, so one of the important ancient cultures from this area that was unique to itself was Sumer. From its beginning around 9000 BCE, you can obviously see that that's a long time ago. Farming spread here into the West Asia, Near East, Middle East, however you want to designate it, developing more complex societies and towns. And really, you see the city-states emerge, around 3500 BCE. And what we're seeing is the cultivation of art, of law, of religion, in a way that looks more familiar to us now, in terms of what we think of as civilization. Here's just kind of an example of some of the cities that would be surrounded by protective walls that you would have back then. And they certainly have a familiar look. And again, these places would have been developing in lands that were mentioned in the Bible as well. Okay, we have the ziggurats, which are temples dedicated to gods and palaces for rulers. Again, something like this would be we would see show up in many different places, right? Okay, so I'm just kind of briefly covering over these points. Now here's where I think things get more interesting for us. We have the concept of the wheel, the creation of the wheel by 3000 BCE. You just take it for granted. Oh, there's a wheel. Of course, wheels, right? Well, that's a engineering construct. I mean, it's not like nature just gave us wheels. We didn't wagons with wheels don't just come out of the ground. And so we see that for the first time in human history, at least at this point for now, we see that the invention of the wheel happens here. I think that that's a huge contribution to what we see in all civilizations now. Would we agree? What else? Calendars. Ways to mark the days, right? The years, the weeks, the months. They had a computation system based on segments of 12 and 60, still used for dividing time. I mean, just think about that, right? That's what they had back then, and that's what we use now. And why 60? Why is it 60 minutes and not 70 minutes? It's always kind of a question, right? In my first philosophy class, I pointed out here that in 101, my professor asked the class, is a minute real? And I think at first we thought, God, that's a ridiculous question. And then we were like, oh, is a minute real? And he's kind of pointing out, like, who came up with this idea that there's a minute and these numbers to define what a minute is? Well, they have their origins that we at least can trace back to this ancient civilization. Excuse me, I've always got this little cough. It's like a chronic problem. Irrigation systems, very important, right? Water. Those living in the Central Valley of California know very much the important or the use of irrigation systems and all of that. And then fundamentally, how are we even having this class, this discussion? Writing, okay? Cuneiforms, these symbols here, the idea of writing something symbolically down to symbolize and to alert us what it would invoke what comes out of our mouths, right? That's something that is a huge contribution to the way that the world works now. And I just, on a side note, I said important note, Sumerian is linguistically unique. It means that there's not, a lot of languages are related to each other. Arabic and Hebrew are related, like spirit is ruach in Hebrew, it's ruh in Arabic. The way that its verbal systems are used. So we see different languages are related to each other. This is it kind of it stands out uniquely on its own. All right, and that's just a little side issue. But okay, so I'm gonna move to the next one. Now we're gonna go just talking about the Akkadians. So I have C here. It means like circa, around, right? Around 2350 BCE, Sumer city-states were conquered by a famous king, Sargon of Akkad, and for many of Assyrians, and especially the Central Valley, you probably know a few Sargons. I might have a Sargon student right now. He was a legendary king from that area and king of the Akkadians. Okay. Now I'm going to stop here. I'm going to return to this legend of him. And this is where we start drawing some links on interesting ideas that come from the Bible, the biblical tradition, and some of the ideas and stories coming out of these ancient civilizations. And I'll return to that on the next lecture.